Healing and Savage can be considered the backbone of progression because in order for a team to see mechanics for the first time and to practice resolving them, the healers must keep everyone topped off and most likely resurrect a teammate here and there, or LB3, to successfully reach the end of the fight known as the Enrage sequence. To accomplish this goal, healers must understand how to best utilize their healing kit during the fight while also having the ability to multitask healing their team, resolving mechanics, and of course, DPSing the boss. My name is Midna Baby, and this video will be covering the basics of Savage healing and what to expect when progressing through any encounter. I hope this serves as a good introduction and foundation to build on during your Savage healing journey. I also have another introductory guide to Savage with information not mentioned in this video. The link to that video is in the description below. I'd also like to take this moment and announce that I am now happily partnered with Temperance, who is also the sponsor of this video. Temperance is a Discord community dedicated to guiding healers and hosting various in-game events that also support charity. The Discord is filled with some really talented creators, so if you're looking for additional guides or have a specific healer question, myself and others are available to chat with anytime. If you're interested, the Discord link is in the description. As of Endwalker, there are currently 4 healer jobs available to play which fall under 2 subcategories. 2 of those being regen or pure healers and the other 2 being shield or mitigation healers. You've most likely decided which healer you're going to raid with, but I'll give a general rundown of what responsibilities each healer type has. A pure healer's kit revolves around strong burst healing and regen healing, also known as heal over time or HOT spells. Their main responsibility is keeping the tanks and party topped off at all times, especially during phases where the group is taking continuous damage. Pure healers also have a couple mitigations and shields as well in case those are needed for tank busters and other emergencies. A shield healer's kit contains strong shields and other various forms of damage mitigation that are both single target and party-wide. Their main responsibility is protecting their team before incoming raid-wide damage. This type of playstyle requires some preemptive thinking and planning ahead of the encounter timeline. Learning to play both a pure and shield healer in case you need to flex for your group is an extremely useful tool to have. The knowledge of both healer roles can give you the full scope of what healing is required in each encounter and help you plan out your cooldown usage. Having a UI that allows you to reach your party list quickly in case someone needs urgent healing and keeping important cooldowns prominent on your hotbar are underestimated tools that can make you a more efficient healer. Your UI should be set up in a way that helps you keep track of cooldowns, the boss's health and cast bar, and anything else you may need to play comfortably. For my UI personally, the hotbar reflects the button layout of my MMO mouse, and I have my important skills up top so I can keep track of when they are available to use since I use them immediately off cooldown. I also have the boss's health, cast bar, buffs and debuffs organized around my gauge since I'm always looking at what cards or seals I have drawn. This helps me stay informed on what's happening in the fight so I don't get lost when it's time for me to perform a mechanic. If you're unsure on what you should change, referencing other players' UIs who play the same job can give you some inspiration and a good start on creating an optimal setup. As you are progressing through a Savage encounter for the first time, your approach as a healer should primarily be overhealing and over-mitigating every raid-wide mechanic. It's best to play as safe as possible since the present goal is to see all the mechanics and phases of the encounter. Keeping the party topped off at all times and resurrecting party members is your first priority until the group is ready to attempt the actual clear. You will also be using the healer LB3 often to recover the party in order to progress, so make sure you have it on your hotbar. Once the party is more comfortable with the encounter and you've possibly reached Enrage, everyone should have a general idea of what the encounter timeline is like and a rough plan on how much healing and mitigation is required. You can now start removing those extra heals and shields used for progression and incorporate more DPS instead. Make sure you communicate what you plan to remove so you don't catch anyone off guard. The party may need to rearrange some mitigations to make up for any lost heals or shields, but that most likely won't be necessary. The goal for you now is to use less GCD heals and more OGCD heals so you can DPS. Make sure you don't remove too much healing or else you'll just wipe the party. Okay, now let's go into more detail about progression as a healer. Every Savage fight is scripted, meaning all incoming party damage, tank busters, and mechanics happen in the same order of succession during the encounter's timeline. Having an idea of when these events happen is extremely useful when planning out your heals and maximizing the use of your kit. This knowledge also gives you confidence on when you can start incorporating DPS in between healing the party. I'm going to share an example from my own healing timeline in Phase 2 of P4S that gives me the ability to have full DPS uptime just by prepping some heals beforehand. So Act 2 requires the group to split off around the map to resolve towers and stacks. While that's happening, there will be quite a bit of damage going out, and because I'm so far away, I won't be able to reach everyone with my heals. How I take care of that is by prepping multiple heals that will detonate one after the other. At this point of the fight, I pay attention to when the tank buster Demigod Double is being cast and use that spell as a reminder for me to begin prepping my heals. As soon as that cast goes off, I pop my neutral sect to provide additional shields to the party, horoscope to detonate at the very end of the phase, and place an earthly star. The last spell I use right before the party splits off is Macro Cosmos. So now that all my heals are prepped, I can pop my lightspeed to have full DPS uptime while running to resolve the mechanic. I'm not worried at this point because I have my star to detonate for the first bit of damage, as you can see is going off. And as soon as we're running back to the center for the raid wide, my Macro Cosmos also detonates to top everyone off, as well as horoscope. In this case, my horoscope was a little too early because I have it detonate after the raid wide. This seems like a lot of overheal, but honestly, everything I need will be off cooldown by the time the next mechanic goes out, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. Experimenting with your cooldowns and testing different combinations of heals is essential while progging fights. There are many different approaches you can take to healing each encounter, and these may differ to what healers do depending on their team composition. It's also extremely important to discuss the use of cooldowns with your co-healer and the rest of your team, since everyone has a mitigation tool available to assist with negating party damage, making your job a little less stressful. I really want to emphasize that last thing I said. Healers may have the most responsibility when it comes to healing and mitigating. However, everyone has some form of mitigation or self-heal that can be used in areas where there is a lot of incoming damage. There are times where even if you use everything possible in your kit, it might not be enough for a particular raid wide, especially when people aren't geared yet. That being said, you also can't just blow all of your cooldowns for one raid wide when there is still half the fight left. Pay attention to what your party is using for mitigation, and don't be afraid to ask for additional support for certain mechanics, and familiarize yourself with mitigation tools the DPS and tanks have. Players seriously underestimate the power of these skills and can easily forget to use them. Healers don't always have to adjust. Sometimes the party has to adjust, okay? It's a team effort. Now that you've seen the entire fight and the clear is within reach, it's time to shift gears and start prioritizing DPS. I know this concept can baffle new healers, and they sometimes question why they're even expected to DPS. However, healing in Final Fantasy XIV differs a little bit than other MMOs such as World of Warcraft. Healers are required to DPS as much as possible, and the fights are designed with the expectation that all party members are contributing to damaging the boss. This is especially important in newly released Savage encounters, and healer DPS can be the determining factor on whether the team can clear or not. This takes some practice, including getting used to the tempo of Savage level fights and being more comfortable with each fight's individual timeline. Keep in mind, there are healer-intensive moments where DPSing is minimal, so try not to feel overwhelmed and stay focused on keeping the party alive. The best thing to do is to get into the habit of fitting in DPS spells between heals while also keeping up your dot on the boss. Healers can also develop the habit of constantly topping party members off when they can actually be DPSing instead. There are brief increments of time in each encounter when simply placing a regen will be enough to heal everyone before the next raid wide is being cast by the boss. There is also a useful technique healers and casters use to continue damaging the boss while maneuvering around the arena called slide casting. In order to slide cast, take a look at your cast bar and try to take a step in any direction near the end of the cast. The timing can vary depending on your ping, but it's generally around the last half second of the total cast time. You can practice this technique on a striking dummy outside of raid until you're comfortable. It's an extremely powerful tool to master for raiding, and you won't have to sacrifice as many casts while performing mechanics. Recovering the party is a task that the healers will have to do often and something to get used to. I would personally say there is a lot of pressure on the healers to get the party back on track after multiple deaths and possibly having the clear in your hands. The most important to keep alive during this time is you, of course, so you can raise the other party members and continue healing. Your next priority should be keeping at least one of the tanks alive before the boss starts one-shotting everyone else. The last priority is resurrecting the healer if they're down as well, or a caster DPS with the ability to raise any remaining party members. Saving your swift cast for resurrections is essential in any progression setting, since mistakes are more frequent. It's useful to have a caster DPS who can also raise, so healers can save MP and focus on healing instead. Raise responsibility is dependent on the situation, but typically if the group is aiming for the clear, the healers should be the ones to raise unless they call out for assistance or it's an intense healing moment. The timing of the raise can be important too. Is there a raid-wide incoming that could wipe the group? A mechanic that requires you to dodge or continuously move? Do you have enough MP to raise and continue healing or DPSing? Keep these questions in mind before you raise anyone and make sure you are aware of what's going on in the encounter as well. Your last resort to recovering the party is using the healer LB3. If half the party is down, it's best to find a safe spot in the arena and use the LB3 before the next mechanic begins. A healer LB3 takes a rough total of 10 seconds to use. The party will be resurrected in the first 2 seconds of the cast, but the healer will be animation locked for an additional 8 seconds. That means you won't be able to move or cast any spells until that duration has passed. Oftentimes you'll have to sacrifice yourself for the party's benefit, but that sacrifice could also be a guaranteed clear for the group. Another great method of studying any raid encounter is by watching healer POVs. Referencing how another player plans their heals and the many different combinations of spells they use for specific mechanics is a great way to compare your own healing timeline with. It's best to choose someone who's playing the same job as you, of course, so you can take note of what heals or mitigations they are using. It also gives you an idea of how much damage is going out, especially near the end of the fight plus the enrage sequence. You can find lots of POVs on YouTube or check out streamers while they're live in case you have any questions about the usage of skills during an encounter. Keep in mind, everyone has their own style of healing and there could be variations of how skills are used depending on the team composition and healing partner. It's a good idea to pay attention to what party mitigations are being used not only by healers but also the tanks and DPS. You may notice certain skills being used by others that you can possibly suggest to your own team to make your healing experience a bit more comfy. Watching POVs is something I do all the time while progressing a fight, even between pulls, so I have an idea of what I need to do in case we're about to reach a new mechanic or phase. I've also started uploading my own POVs of first-time clears and ultimates in Savage in case anyone needs an Astrologian POV. You're also welcome to come ask me any Astro-specific questions while I'm live on Twitch. The responsibilities and pressures of healing can feel very overwhelming when you're new to Savage content, but as long as you have a basic understanding of how raiding and healing works, you'll be clearing all difficulties of content in due time. I really hope this video helps someone in the community out and look forward to hearing your feedback. If there are any additional tips you would like to add, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you're new to my channel, welcome! My name is Midna. You can find me at twitch.tv/MidnaBaby, where I stream all my raid progression, and I love helping the community out with their own raid clears. Good luck, and I'll see you on Eorzea!